Om Stapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupini avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha Sudhismriti purananam alayam karunalayam namami bhagavatpadam Shankaram lokashankaram. We are discussing the previous verse, that is 119. That's about the Sattva Guna. Now the discussion continues, that 20th verse. Misrasya sattvasya bhavanti dharmaha tvamanitadya nayama yamadyaha shraddha cha bhaktischa mumukshada cha devi cha sambat asannivrittihi. So here you can see a person who is endowed with Sattva-guna, how he operates in this world, how he works in this world, what are his distinct characteristics are explained here. So, misrasya sattvasya bhavanti dharmaha tu amanidadyaha. It's a reference to Bhagavad Gita. Niyama yamadyaha saddha cha bhaktischa mumukshudha devi cha sambattihi asannivrittihi. Now, here there is a very interesting observation by a commentator who wrote a short tika, gloss or a short commentary on this Vivekachudamani. There are not many commentaries in Sanskrit, but the one which is considered to be very authentic was written by Shankaracharya Bharati. So he says, Misrasya sarvatmanaha tamashunyasya ishad rajomisrasya sattvasya ityarthaha. So, what's the meaning of the Misra? It means somebody who has Sattva Guna as a dominant feature, but also Rajoguna, but very little Tamo Guna. In fact, this is what we call generally a civilized, cultured, refined gentleman or cultured women in the world. Somebody who has a lot of Sattva Guna as a dominant feature, but also active, living in this world, interacting with people. Such a person is called a Sattvic person. So the highest Sattva Guna is a stage where there is very little action and mostly you become a very contemplative, introspective person. But normally those whom we find in this world, who have self-restraint, self-control, refined, cultured and civilized, such a person is called a Sattvic person. So one important quality is that he has a lot of Rajoguna that helps him to be active in this world, but at the same time the dominant feature is Sattva Guna. So, and he says, the Bhashikar of Shankaracharya, he says, Amanitwadi. So, Amanitvam, Adambitvam, Ahimsa, Kshanti, Ajavam, Acharyo Vasanam, Shaujam, Stairyam, Atma Vinigraha, Indriyartheshu Vairagyam, Anahangara Evacha, Janma Murtijara Vyati, Dukha Doshanu Darsanam, Asakti, Anabhishanga, Putra Daragrihadishu, Nityam Samachittatvam, Ishtanishtovavatishu, Mayachaninne Yogena Bhakti Ravibijarini, Vivikta Desha Savitum, Anabhirjana Samsadi, Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam, Tattva Jnanartha Darsanam, Yeda Jnanamidi Proktam, Ajnanam Yadato Anyatha. These are 5 verses, 13th chapter, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th verses. Depends upon, there are 2 versions of Gita, the most well-known version. 13th chapter, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th verses. Now, these 5 lines give you a description of how a cultured, civilized, a spiritual person lives in this world. Beyond that stage, he becomes highly contemplative. So the qualities are humility, no pretension, ahimsa, forbearance, uprightness, service to teacher, purity, steadiness, and self-control, renunciation of sense objects, absence of egoism, reflection of evil, of birth and death. Many of these are common to Buddhism also, samsara, this problem of living in this world with all these experiences of good and bad, pain and pleasure, and then doing things, creating a huge stock of karmas, karma phalas, then again being born again with those samskaras and continuing this wheel, praditya samudpada. All these are, you can mention here, non-attachment, non-identification, and then constant even-mindedness, and not being attached to what is desirable and not averse to something undesirable. Then unwavering devotion. So there's a very important verse here, which is 10th verse, which has got a special significance. Maicha aninya yogena bhaktihi avibhijarini vivikta desha sevitum anabhir jana samsati. In fact, this is the one definition of bhakti in the Gita as something non-different, non-distinct from jnanam. In fact, the first statement that the highest bhakti, devotion, and the highest Advaitic Jnanam are the same. The idea comes from the Shankara's commentary, Bhashya, on this particular verse. So the commentator says, he says, for example, Avibhijarini bhakti, na vibhijarana shila, vibhijarini, shuddha, nirmala, and he goes on describing pure devotion, unwavering devotion to God. You're completely absorbed in meditation, contemplation. And that is also the highest level of Advaitic realization. So after giving a long list of the characteristics that describe this unwavering devotion, the commentator in the Gita Bhashya says, Sacha Jnanam, that is also called Jnanam, the highest Advaitic experience. So you may have found in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, the highest bhakti or devotion, the highest Advaitic Jnanam are the same. In fact, this first statement in the entire Hindu theological literature, where it says if you are meditating in a church or a temple, entirely absorbed in the thought of God, that is not very different from the highest absorption in Atman for an Advaitin. That is the 10th verse of the 13th chapter. Then Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam Yada Jnanam Iti Proktam Ajnanam Yadado Anyatha. Constant application to spiritual knowledge, understanding of the highest knowledge. Now this is the highest example of a spiritual person. So you can see a list of the qualities that you normally should associate with a person who is of a sattvic temperament. There is no other way to describe, understand, or define sattva guna, rajo guna, tamo guna. These are very, very abstract terms which are not visible, which are quite abstract and subtle. But when you talk to a person, not when he is sitting in meditation, we don't know, frequently. A person can be meditating on worldly things. So given in one of the commentaries, the Shankaracharya himself says, a monkey was sitting with calm contemplation on something. And next moment he jumped, pounced upon somebody, took away the fruit in his hands. So you never know how a person really works in this world when he is introspective or when he is inactive. We are not talking about the highest spiritual mystics, we are talking about people whom you find and interact with in the world. So how he works, how he interacts with people around, So, all these qualities are very important. Humility, straightforwardness, uprightness, then a sense of service to others. Again, steadiness, a kind of, we call it spiritual common sense. That's the essence of, that's the most visible mark of a spiritually oriented person who lives in this world, who works in this world. Now, after giving all these qualities, all these different contrasting, sometimes some of the mutually accommodating characteristics, there is one statement that should go along with this, that also comes from Gita Bhashya, where the commentator Shankaracharya, he gives a list of different qualities of a spiritually illumined person called Sthita Prajna, somebody whose mind is steady because it's absorbed in the transcendental reality. And then he says, these are qualities and characteristics of a highly enlightened spiritual person. Now, what is the benefit of reading this? We may get a list of things that we may not already possess. And there, the commentator will tell you, Sarvatrahi Adhyatma Shastre Kridartha Lakshanani Tani Eva Sadhanani Upadishyante. So when you get a list of, or an idea of the qualities of a spiritual person, they are given, they are listed there with one very, very important purpose. That is, we should try to develop those qualities in our own life. Then you find yourself become a spiritually enlightened person. To give an example, suppose you see in the picture, you see a very powerful person, huge muscles, going to gymnasium every day. So how to become a man like him? So what you should do, you cannot just develop muscles like that. But you should try to develop in your own personality those qualities. And for that you start going to gymnasium or do whatever is needed to develop a strong body. Because this is a characteristic of a physically strong person. I am giving a very, very somewhat crude physical example. So these qualities like ahimsa or humility, non-injury, forbearance, non-attachment, devotion, compassion, understanding, broad-mindedness, all these are given as qualities of a man with a spiritual sattvic temperament. Now, how do we become a spiritually enlightened person? We should try sincerely to develop in our own personality those very qualities that you find in a spiritually enlightened person. Then only we become spiritually enlightened. So he says, so in all spiritual literature, all these qualities are given, which are characteristics and qualities of a highly enlightened person. If we also try to develop those qualities, we also become an enlightened person. By sincere effort, this is possible. That's the implication here. Not external imitation. Somebody went to learn music from a teacher. So, if you, in all schools of music, there is a lot of body language, gestures, some of them are not very pleasant to look at. If you go to see South Indian music or Hindustani music or Western music, there is a lot of gestures and physical body movements. So you don't learn those body movements first and then music. So the student in this interesting anecdote asked the guru, the teacher, you teach me all these gestures first, then music later. The teacher told him, when you learn music, these gestures will come automatically. So we cannot learn this by imitation. By sincerely developing these qualities, we also become spiritually enlightened. So that is why it's a very, very, very important. This is considered to be one of the most important verse in this discussion of anatma. You have to remember the 7 questions that the student put to the teacher. Ko nama bandha kadhamesha agataha, kadham pradishtha asya, kadham vimokshaha, koso anatma paramakka atma, tayo viveka kadhamedad uchyadam. So the Guru was asked 7 questions. That is, I think, 54th or 51st verse. And then the teacher first begins to answer the 5th question, Koso Anatma. What are those things which are distinct and different from the absolute reality? And then you can understand what is the true nature of the absolute reality. So here you find the highest that a human being can reach in his life in spiritual progress is to develop these qualities. So in the Gita, in the 13th chapter, you find these 20 qualities, Amanitum, Adambitum, the 13th chapter, 7th verse. These are the qualities which are important for one to develop. So Amadityaha, then Niyamaha, Yamadhyaha. So Yama Niyamas is given in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Yama Niyama Asana Pranayama Pratyahara Dharana Dhyana Samadhi. There are 8 disciplines that we should develop when you enter yoga life. The first were universal, that is Yama. Then there are subsidiary Niyamas. So Ahimsa Satya Steya Brahmacharya Parigraha. That is 5. And then Shaucha Santosha Tapaswadhyaya Isapnidana. 5 niyamas. So these qualities we develop, then naturally you become a yogi. That's why. First of all, a sense of non-injury, respect for everyone, so that you won't mentally, verbally, physically do harm to anyone. Then a sense of truthfulness. Then you don't have desire for things that don't belong to you, asteya, non-stealing. Then you don't go about accepting things from everyone because you are free from greed. Then in sense of inner purity of life, these are universal. And in fact, in the Yoga Bhashya, in the Bhashya Vartikam, and also in other commentaries, in Vyasa Bhashya also, Vyasa says, anyone who wants to practice yogasana, physical exercises, we mentioned the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, there are a few books here and Samhita. These are the books which describe different yoga postures, physical postures. Anyone who begins to try to learn these yogic postures, especially the complicated ones, should get established in yamas and niyamas. Because when you get established in these disciplines, you are blocking the channels flowing outward. So these are all very, very important yamas. That's why a sattvic person should develop these yamas and niyamas and then do everything else. So amanita dhya niyama yamadhyaha. So a few more observations on this from the Yoga Bhashya Vartikam. That is, according to Vijnana Bhikshu and Vajaspati and others, later commentators, and Bhoja Vritti and Bhashya Vivarana, Shankara Vivarana, when you practice any kind of physical yogic postures, especially when you practice pranayama, you generate energy. You are generating extra surplus physical, mental energy. So this energy is like a fuel that is used to move the machine of human body and mind. So normally when an individual who doesn't have self-restraint, when he develops energy, a lot of energy and heat is generated by yoga practices. This energy can drive him in the wrong direction, which can manifest in problems like bipolar and manic depressive, manic energy, and they're going up, you become hyperactive, and then you become depressed, energy goes down. So that's why for any person who wants to enjoy the inner serenity of Sattva Guna, which is going to describe earlier. So when you feel you have a lot of Sattva Guna, one important characteristic is you feel you are friends with yourself. Your mind is your friend, not your enemy. And that's the highest achievement one can think of. If your mind is willing to cooperate with you, you try to do something good. There is no greater achievement. So, of course, this has got other implications also. Manaiva Manushyanam Bendhanam, like there are other statements. But in this context, at a simple physical level, when we can turn our mind into our own friend, when we try to do something which is beneficial to us, our mind is willing to cooperate. Mind feels a kind of inner serenity and contentment within when we do something which is going to help us. And when we do something which is not helpful to us, mind is not willing to cooperate. Such a mind is your best friend. After all, in physical life also, who is a friend? A friend is somebody who is helping you in your pursuit of your own desire, cherished goals and achievements. So a friend who encourages you to take to drugs, certainly not a friend of yours. A friend who tells you not to go to drugs is your best friend. The same thing, our own mind becomes our friend. So that's what is going to explain here in the next verse. You can see this. Vishuddha sattvasya guna prasadaha svatmanubhuti parama prashantihi. That 121st verse, which we are going to discuss later. So this inner prasada, chitta prasada, our own mind is friendly with us. Our own mind becomes our guide and philosopher and our own well-wisher. So that happens when we practice these qualities. That is, I give, of course, Gita gives a list of 20 qualities. But the interesting thing is, if you develop one of those 20 qualities, then automatically all other 19 qualities will automatically develop in our mind. They don't come one after another, they come together. So also when you get established in ahimsa, naturally you will be established in satyam, asteyam, brahmacharya, aparigraham. Again, shauja, santosha, tapaswadhyaya, isapadidhana. These are niyamas, which are subsidiary to yamas, which are called sarvabhauma niyama. So, this kind of inner purity, inner contentment, a sense of self-accomplishment, and austerity, hard work for anything. And here also, there are interesting points made and which are referred to by the great commended Chandrasekhara Bharati, Sinkeri, he says. Api prayatna sampannam kapena upahadam tapaha na tushtaye maheshasya solidam iva payasam. It's a very interesting verse. So, hard work, lack of absence of alasya or laziness, sincerely working hard for a higher goal, higher life, is one way of developing these sattvic qualities. This is mentioned, implied here. But here also there is an interesting observation. Suppose you work hard, physically you work hard, mentally and physically, but then mind is full of desire, greed, competition, a sense of competition with everyone, jealousy, envy and things like that. Kamena upahadam. So our mind is stolen, is imprisoned, it has lost its freedom, taken away by desire. And desire means many other things that come together. Na tushtayed maheshasya. It's not going to it's not going to help you or help God. Why? Because solidum iva payasam, something, you make wonderful payasam means milk pudding. The people prepare to offer the deity in temples. You prepare a wonderful pudding. And then a dog comes and licks it. Then even the best of pudding will not be fit for human consumption. So these are very, very interesting observations in this book. So hard work is needed, sincere hard work, a sense of purpose, sense of goal, humility already needed. But at the same time, it should not be a work for any material achievement or pleasure. That's a very interesting observation. Saddhacha bhaktischa mumuksudacha daivicha sampattihi asannivrittihi. So saddha, bhakti, mumukshuda, these are all part of the essential characteristics for a spiritual seeker called sadhana chadushtaya sambatti. We already discussed in the 19th verse. Nitya nitya vastu vega ihamutra phalabhoga viraga shamati sakka sambatti mumukshuttam. So we are not going to repeat again. So some of these qualities, for example, a sense of real and unreal, and a sense of application to what is real, and a sense of disregard for what is unreal, and then qualities like shama, dhamma, uparadhi, tidiksha, siddha, samadhanam. Already we discussed many times in the earlier classes. These are qualities needed, and then a strong desire for spiritual liberation. Mumukshda. This mumukshda can be very complicated if you read the mere translation. Somebody tried mumuksha means desire for moksha. Now, in what way it's going to be beneficial for a normal person living 21st century, going to office work? So mumukshda sometimes interpreted like a sense of higher goal in life. That's the beginning of desire for spiritual enlightenment, a sense of higher goal. Normally, our actions and our activities are focused on some immediate, visible purposes and goals in our life, mostly. But along with that, we bring in a higher ideal, something transcendental, something for which, an interest on some higher ideas for which we won't get any special material benefit. So that could be the beginning of a desire for moksha or liberation. So these are some of the great qualities mentioned here. Again, this sattva-guna, what it does to our personality. What's the advantage, what's the benefit of acquiring sattva-guna? One important benefit of sattva-guna is that it refines our energy. It is an energy refining system, sattva-guna. Normally, rajoguna is hyperactivity, tamoguna is lack of activity, absence of activity, laziness. Nidra se pramadoktam tatamasam udakram means sleepishness, inertia, lack of interest in anything, dullness, confusion, these are all tamogunas. Hyperactivity, desire for achieving something wonderful. At the same time, when you achieve all that, your mind is not healthy enough to enjoy the fruits of your own work. That is characteristic of a person who has plenty of rajoguna, lot of activity. That borders on restlessness. But at the same time, no self-restraint. So what is the advantage of sattva-guna? Sattva-guna refines, it modifies, in a way it civilizes our activities, our emotions, our feelings, our desires, purpose of life. That's the advantage of sattva-guna. Without sattva-guna, if you become hyperactive because of rajoguna, what happens is We may do a lot of things, we may achieve a lot of things, but we have not taken care of our mental health. That's what happens. The richest man may be mentally a very sick person. The most accomplished person in material life may be spiritually and mentally a mental wreck. This happens in modern times. I mean, success in material life, but failure in real life, so to speak. So this Sattva gives us a higher purpose in life, and when this higher purpose is guiding us, it becomes a civilizing factor. Now, I'm just skipping a few verses which are already discussed earlier. We are going to one important Paramak Atma, the question that is sixth question, answer to the sixth question. Those who have not attended this class, you can listen to earlier classes. Before that, in some of the places in this text, Shankaracharya gives a hint of some of the problems in our spiritual life. What are the possible danger points, the wrong red signals that we have to be aware of? There's a verse here, Lekshachudam ched yadi chittameshat bahirmukham sannipadet tadastataha pramadada prachuda kelikantukaka sopana pankto patito yatha. This text is, remember, we have got about 564 verses. These are interrelated. So unless you are introduced to different verses from different sections of this text, you will get a complete picture of a single topic being discussed. So this verse comes as a 326th one, which frequently referred to as a warning signal, 326th. So you find here, Lekshachudam ched yadi chittameshat. So somebody is playing on the top of a building, on the terrace, maybe the top level of a staircase, and which I referred to earlier, Bahirmukham sannipate tadastadaha pramadada prachuda kelikantukaha. So a ball, maybe somebody is playing, maybe a child is playing with a ball, standing in the top of a staircase, and by mistake that ball slips through his fingers, lekshachudam, I mean it loses its targets. Pramadata, because he was playing, but the ball falls from his hands, then it hits on the top of the staircase, and then what happens, it comes down stage by stage. Bahirmukham sannipade tadastataha, one after another. It hits the top stair, and then it comes down 1, 2, 3. Finally, it won't stop before it hits the floor. Sopana pankti means a staircase. Like that, in spiritual life, if we don't try to develop sattvic qualities, our mind will not remain idle. It will develop non-sattvic qualities. So there is no neutral position here. Very often in the observation, the commentary you find is mentioned. Mind chooses its own ways. Frequently doesn't listen to our instructions. And when the mind takes its own way, it may not be for our good after all. So that's why we should always try to develop sattvic qualities. If we don't develop sattvic qualities, then it's like the ball slipping through our fingers and hitting on the top floor and coming down 1, 2, 3, one after another. Finally, it hits the rock bottom. in modern times, the danger of mind slipping through our own control is much small because social media, YouTube, which I don't want to refer to. So that's why it is very, very important to keep our efforts to develop sattvic qualities. In the commentaries, frequently you find these are mentioned from yoga perspective, the importance of yama and niyama. These two fundamental disciplines are emphasized. From bhakti tradition, called Navadha Bhakti, 9 ways of spiritual practices for somebody who believes in God. Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Bandhanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmadevi. All these are mentioned here. So now we will come to 126th verse. This is a very important one. This deals with the highest philosophy. Adhate sampravakshyami surupam paramatmanaha yad vijñāya naro bandhan muktai kaivalyam asnute. The teacher is making a statement here. Remember, you have to keep in mind that the entire text is in the form of a dialogue between a student and a teacher. In the text, the teacher begins by describing how wonderful it is to be born as a human being, and how wonderful it is to be born as a human being with some sense of self-control. Turlabham Trayamevaidat Devanugrahedu. He begins. I don't want to go to those details again. So Manushyuttum Mumukshuttum Mahapurusha Samsaya. To be born as a human being, and then to have association with spiritual persons, and to have a strong desire for higher spiritual life. These three together is a rare gift, a boon from God. That's how it begins. Then there is a description of an ideal spiritual seeker. What are the essential qualities called sadhana, chatushtaya sambhati, which I referred to just now. And then what are the characteristics of a teacher, a student, and what are the important principles. Then there is a description. Then there are 5 questions are put by the student to the teacher. That's what I referred to here earlier. So you have to please keep that in mind, that text. That's how the text is to be followed. So I will try to. The verse is this: Kosu ko nama bandha kadamesha agadaha kadam padishthasya kadam vimokshaka kosu anatma paramaka atma tayo viveka kadametha uchyadam. So a student is asking 7 questions to a teacher. What is bondage? Why do we suffer in this world? Why life is not happy in spite of all that you have accomplished in material life? Why this lingering pain and dissatisfaction in our life is called kind of bondage. And then how it came about, katham esha agataha, katham pradishthasya, where is it established, and how to get out of it, katham vimokshaka, koso anatma. What is that which is distinct from the absolute reality? Let's say what is different from God. What do you call in Christianity? Antichrist, so to speak. The Paramakatma, what is absolute reality, and how to distinguish one from the other. Tayor viveka kadamedu uchyadam. This is how the text unfolds. So we already discussed the one important part of it, that is Kosu Anatma. What is that which is distinct and different from the absolute reality? Now the discussion begins. What's the nature of absolute reality? And here it begins, 127th. Asti kaschit swayam nityam aham pratyelambanaha avasthatraya sakshi san panchakosha vilakshanaha. So in Advaita Vedanta, in the tradition that we belong to, there are different ways of analyzing the nature of absolute reality. One, and very popular one, is you think of the 3 states of our own awareness. When we are living in this world, we go through these 3 levels. Avasthatraya sakshi. Avasthatraya means 3 levels of human consciousness. Sakshi means witness. So witness should be distinct from what it is witness of, what it is witnessing. Then only it is called witness. So that is one way of looking at the absolute reality. One supreme seer, a perceiver, Sakshi, witness, subject, which is distinct and different from what it is witnessing. So this, of course, we are discussing the Mandukya Upanishad and Mandukya Karika, which you can find Shankara Bhashyas we already discussed, and nearly 250 YouTube classes are there. But I am here in a brief description. So Vedanta tells you that there is one state which is called waking state, called a Jagrat state, waking state. When we do things, when we experience things at a physical level, when mind and the five senses are involved, just somewhat gross. You walk, you see something, your mind and eyes are coming together, then only you see something. When your mind and ears are coming together, then you hear something. When your mind and sense of smell come together, then you feel the smell of a perfume. So also all these things happens. That is the gross dimension of our personality. When we are active, and when we are active with our mind and the five senses of perception and five senses of action. This is one state, waking state. There is another state, totally different. Sushupti state means deep sleep or dreamless sleep state. Sushupti, deep sleep. Deep sleep is very important in our life. You find people go crazy if they don't get deep sleep. People who meet doctors, they don't complain that they are not getting dreams. They complain that they are not getting sleep, because if you don't sleep, then mind will shut down. Mind will fall sick, and that creates serious problems. So these are two states. One is deep sleep or dreamless or deep sleep, Sushupti. The other one is waking state. Between these two, of course, there is a dream. That is called Swapna. Dream is a state where we may do all that we are doing in this world when we are waking up. We are doing, but then we are doing it mentally. So in waking state, you buy a ticket, you fly 6 hours, you reach New York. And you do things and you come back in waking state. In dream also this could happen. But in dream, booking the ticket and traveling and coming back, all can happen in one split second. It's a mental action without the participation of physical or sensory organs, sense of perceptions, I mean eyes, ears, sense of touch, sense of smell, sense of hear, all these are inactive. But you hear things in dream, not with your ears, but with your mind. You see things in dreams, not with the eyes are closed, with your mind. So dream can reproduce waking state experiences. It is called subtle or sukshma. So these are three states in which human consciousness functions: waking, dream, and deep sleep. Now, Vedanta tells you that there is one reality which is present in all these three states, but it is involved in all the three states. In Sushupti, of course, that witness is present, but our ability to recognize its presence is shut down, so we are not able to see that. But we can see when we come out of sleep, deep sleep, I had wonderful sleep, the restfulness is experienced by a person. But Vedanta tells you that there is somebody who is distinct and different from all these three states. called Turiya. That Turiya is Paramatma. That's the subject discussed in this 127th verse. Avasthatraya Sakshi. Sakshi or witness of Avasthatraya. Sakshi or witness of all these three states. And that is our true nature. In other words, we have a personality, we have a dimension that goes beyond our sensory activities and experiences in waking or dream states. And that is our true nature. That is Atman, technically called Turiya. We will discuss this in next class. Now we can have interaction. Most welcome. You can ask questions. Yeah.
Thank you for lecture, Swamiji. I just have sort of a simple question about developing forbearance or equanimity in the spiritual practice.
Developing equanimity.
Yeah, and forbearance.
Yeah, that's true. So one way to do that is to develop sattvic qualities. So even when we read or mentally we connect with these ideas, that will always have its direct effect on the mind. When we, for example, understand, recognize the importance of qualities like stability, steadiness of mind, that also slowly you find our mind begins to develop. It depends upon our own temperament. If you are a believer in God, then you leave everything to God's will. That's one way of closing the bargain, taking the load away from your head. But if you don't belong to that kind of people, then one thing to do that is, whatever you do, it has its problems and also it's a beneficial results. Both are there. But these are not permanent. Good and bad, expected results and unexpected results can come and go, they are impermanent. So once we keep in our mind the impermanence of the results of all that we experience, then mind slowly begins to develop a kind of non-attachment. So attachment again should be explained. Attachment implies not being obsessed or mentally enslaved by desire, by the thought of how it's going to benefit us. So if practicing a little bit of non-attachment is one way of keeping the mind steady.
So, one of the blessings that Shankara told is association with sajjanas. But what to do here? We don't find such people around. We just only online, things like that are only possible.
Yeah.
So, what is the practical way?
No, that's true. Satsanga is considered to be one of the most important and effective ways of developing higher qualities. True. So, if you are not able to physically associate with see people, sajjanas, then we should associate with them by connecting with their thoughts and ideas. For example, when we are discussing this book, This book was written by somebody in 8th century. And we are referring to Gita, which goes back to the 3rd millennium BC. So we are actually connecting our mind to these thoughts. So I don't say this is an exact alternative for physical satsanga, but then once we develop these qualities, for example, a place like this temple is there. It's a place where we discuss these subjects. So visiting these places, discussing or being part of these activities is one way of developing sattvic qualities. And one important point to keep in mind is physical activity produces spiritual energy, frequently not well understood in modern psychology. You know, the state of our mind influences our actions. If your mind is unsteady, we won't be able to concentrate on anything. But whatever we do also will have an impact on our mind. It's not visible. So if we can physically get involved in some kind of spiritual activities, it means unselfish activities, associating with higher purpose, volunteering for higher causes, it will produce spiritual energy. This is a very important principle. A person who goes on doing good things will eventually become a good person. This is a very important fact we have to keep in mind. So, mentally it's difficult to tell our mind, no, you don't read this book, you read that book. Mind won't listen to you. It's more difficult to direct our mind in whatever we want. But physically we have a lot more freedom. It's more easy to do good things and any kind of unselfish activities which will produce spiritual energy. And that will slowly make our mind serene and more sattvic. We may ask the question, how do we know this? A simple test is there. It's also in an ancient commentaries that there. Patanjali calls it Chitta Prasada. You know what it is? Suppose you do something very simple, some good action. It may be, I frequently mention, suppose there's a big tsunami going on Philippines, and you may not be the richest man in the world, but you pay $100 check you send to help them, let's say. No one knows about it. And that day you find, well, I have done something sensible. Or you help a person, very simple help you do to a person. Nobody knows, that person may be even ungrateful. But your mind has achieved something, a sense of contentment. Well, I had done something sensible. And that's the indication of generating sattvic qualities. So Sattva always operates in the form of Chitta Prasada, inner serenity. This is a very, very important principle. I gave this example many times. You know why these big industrial captains, they start foundations and trust for some charitable activities. Because when they do that, they feel a kind of inner little. They may have piled up the billions through so many maybe unscrupulous means. We don't know, maybe some of them are great men, they have achieved through proper means. But when they do something with their money, with their resources, something good for others, without any selfish motive, that action produces a spiritual asset, spiritual energy in the mind. And that is one indication that you are doing the right thing. Your own mind will tell you, I have done something sensible. So anyone can start his journey any day, any moment, by engaging in some good activities. Those who do nothing, they remain, that state of mind is called tamasika. Those who do nothing, they can't make any progress in anything. In material life also they can't. There's always a way out for anyone who wants to start a journey in spiritual life by acquiring and accumulating more and more spiritual as it's called sattvic qualities. Okay, thank you for the question. Any more? Any question? Is that clear to you? Okay, yeah. Then,
Swamiji, there's a question online.
yeah.
The question is, what is the difference between no mind state and deep sleep?
Oh, yeah. Known mind state is called Amani Bhava in Vedanta and Yoga, where your mind is no more the mind, but you transcend your mind. When you reach the highest identification with Atman, which is beyond mind, that is called known mind. It is a positive natural growth. Sushupti is totally different from that. In Sushupti, Dvaita is there, mind is there, everything is there, only you don't feel that at that particular state. That's a very important thing. So in Sushupti, your mind shuts down. Sushupti is just absence of dream and waking state. The non-mind state, which is called Turiya, it transcends all the three states. From Sushupti, you come back and again you are what you were earlier. In the Chandogya Upanishad, the statement Vyakrova, Mashugova, insects, mosquitoes, lions, tigers, all of them go to sleep. They are wonderful Sushupti they get, deep sleep. But when they come back, they don't become saints. They continue to be what they are. So also human beings. They don't transcend mind, only they lose their ability, faculty to experience the presence of the mind in that state only. Temporarily shut down. But in Amani Bhava, called non-mind state, you transcend it. You go beyond it. One is transcending, the other one is shutting down. Transcending means, it's called Advaita, means going beyond. When you go beyond graduation, you reach post-graduation. But when you don't even go to kindergarten, that is also absence of everything. So you transcend. One is you going beyond mind. Otherwise, losing the ability to experience mind. Losing the ability to experience mind is Sushupti. Going beyond mind is non-mind state. Okay? Yeah. Frequently I tell you, this is a very popular topic in modern times because it is very exciting, very fascinating if you take the highest conclusion of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, without going to the early stages. So you can be Buddha next day, tomorrow, you can be liberated instantly. All these are very wonderful things. You work in office 16 hours a day, and you're tired and exhausted. Somebody tells you, you can be Buddha in an instant. Very, very wonderful. But there is a big deception behind it. Because you have to work hard, you have to go through a lot of disciplines, then you go beyond mind. If you try to go beyond mind without acquiring the necessary qualifications, you become dull. So there's a very big danger. That's why in the Gita, Lord Krishna was a great psychologist. The first instruction given to Arjuna is, do your work. Whatever ways. Sakama karma means Arjuna was showing symptoms of what you call withdrawal symptoms. Lazy, ignorant, confused. He was not willing to do the duty for which he was called upon. So what he did, and then he gave a philosophical justification for not doing what his duty. Dishtremam sujaram Krishna, yutsum samavastidam sidandima, 28th verse of the first chapter. Arjuna's long lamentation. Krishna said, and Arjuna said, I'll be mystic. I'll be wandering mystic without doing my duty. But Krishna knew the fellow was steeped in tamoguna. Suppose a very poor man, no money, no wealth, he tells you, what's the use of money? Buddha did not have money. I also don't want money. He's a hypocrite. Buddha had a kingdom, a palace which he gave up and became Buddha. So the point is, Arjuna was asked by Krishna to do some activity, some action, then Karma Yoga, Karma Nishtha and so on. So Sushupti is the lowest state. It's called Tamoguna. Absence of inactivity, inertia, confusion. And non-mind is the highest state of spiritual illumination. Okay, thank you.
The dream state lie versus Sushupti, is it at a lower level, same level, or higher level?
Sushupti is a very low level.
So the dream state is higher level.
Which state? Turiya state. Dream.
Dream,
okay.
yeah.
In dream and waking state are belonging spiritually, they are the same level. Because in dream also, you do whatever you do in waking state, you do in dream. Only your mind is involved. Your physical senses, the senses of action, senses of perception are totally uninvolved in dream. Otherwise, everything is the same. Kala, Desha, Sushma, Sthula, Bheda. This means 3 levels of difference. Time difference, place difference, and into space, and also subtle gross difference between these states. So dream state and waking state are practically of the same level from a spiritual perspective. Sushupti is the lowest level, but in Sushupti you get a sense of the absolute. That's because absence of Dvaita is common in Sushupti and also in Turiya, non-mind state. But there is a great difference. The difference is in Sushupti, you feel the absence of Dvaita, objective world, because your faculty of recognizing the objective world is shut down. In Turiya, it has gone beyond all that. There is the absence of this world in Sushupti and also in Turiya, non-mind state. But 2 different reasons. One reason is, in Turiya state, you have gone beyond that. In Sushupti state, it is not there because your ability to perceive the external world is shut down. Mind merges Mula Vidya, the technical language of Advaitins. Okay? We'll continue next week. We'll discuss. Thank you. We have more than 200 lectures on this subject with commentaries of Shankaracharya, Anandagiri and others. Those who are interested can listen to 3 versions of these lectures on that. Thank you. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.